Hey guys, it's been a while. I'm still very much on hiatus, but as I said, I intend to make a video now and then if something stands out that annoys me. And Think Tank has the honor of being the first annoyance to stand out. Many other anti-SJW channels have addressed them before, because their content is absolutely drenched in mindless feminist crap, and this video posted about a week ago is no exception. 5 men-only problems women will never experience. Even while attempting to throw men a bone, airheaded Hannah Cranston and her brainwashed cuck puppet Jason Carter remain condescending, dismissive, and entirely oblivious to the full scope of the male experience.
Now, while I like to consider myself a know-it-all, there are some things that I will never know. Shocker! I know.
Hey, we said at the same time.
We didn't even practice that. But, this is like, have you seen that Saturday Night Live, Kath and Garth?
No.
Well, okay.
Could you possibly be more full of yourselves? Hannah, you're not funny, okay? And you're about as far from a know-it-all as humanly possible. And frankly, I'm not even sure the puppet sitting to your left has a brain at all. To be honest, I'm looking for the wires.
There are some things I will never know, including some feelings that men experience. These are sensations that women will never know. One, having a grown child that you never know about. Yeah, because if you're a woman,
you gave birth to the child.
You gave birth to the child.
Right, that makes sense, wow.
Except for that whole frozen embryo thing now that we just discussed in the video.
That in the past,
but moving on.
Moving on. Really? You're really just gonna breeze by that fucking doozy of a first example? Yeah, no, you're not. Let's park it right here for a second and give it the attention that it actually warrants, because it has far more gravity than you're giving it credit for. I want you to imagine very carefully what it's like to be a lonely man in his mid to late 50s who never had any children so far as he knows. And then, all of a sudden, a 25-year-old stranger comes up and rings his doorbell. Hi, Daddy, I'm your son. Just imagine all the thoughts going through that man's head before the conversation even begins. Is this a joke? How do I know he's my son? Who is his mother? Is he looking for money? A fair assumption considering the fact that women and the legal system that supports them gut men for child support on a regular basis. But let's say that he does believe him. What sort of emotion is that going to stir? He's over the hill now, and many chapters of his younger life have long since closed. He never had a family, and now this young man stands before him, and he realizes that his life could have been very different, possibly for the better. He could have known the bond of a father and son, the love of his own child. He could have watched him take his first steps. He could have heard him speak his first words. He could have played catch with him in the evenings and watched him with pride from the stands at his Little League games. He could have taken him to carnivals and parades in the summer. He could have taught him to shave. He could have told him about the birds and the bees. He could have watched him graduate and start a family of his own. Hell, maybe he even already has children of his own, grandchildren that will now see their grandfather as a perfect stranger. His living legacy was stolen from him because this young man's piece of shit mother never felt the need to inform him. And that leads us into even more troubled waters. How is this young man here now? What made him decide to look for his father this late in life? What has his mother been telling him about his father up until now? Has she been lying? Maybe saying he died somewhere because she was ashamed to have ever slept with him in the first place? Or maybe she did worse. Maybe she smeared his name out of some old grudge, said he cheated, or said he abandoned the family. Now this man is on trial before a son he never knew, having to explain his absence as if this were somehow his fault. And if this young man's mother painted a bad enough picture of him, just how likely do you think it is that his son will believe it when he says that he never even knew he existed? But wait, it can get so much worse. Let's say this man did marry after whatever fling or broken relationship led to the birth of his estranged son. Let's say he did have other children. Now he's on trial before his entire family, who are very likely to look at him as if he's lived some sort of double life and question his morality. And even if they do believe he knew nothing about it, it's still sure to stir up new drama rooted in old drama that he thought he'd left behind decades ago. Drama that could quite easily strain his marriage. And that's not even to say what would happen if she had decided instead to spring the kid on him much, much earlier. That would be very likely to fuck up whatever casual relationship he had going on at the time, as the looming threat of child support hung over his head, and almost guaranteed to ruin it if she decided to use that baby as leverage to try to rekindle whatever special something she thought that they had. And if he denied fatherhood, well...
You are the father!
Oh, and speaking of frozen embryos, what about frozen sperm? This man's ex-wife sued him for £100,000 in 2011 for child support and medical support for a son he never knew he had after she forged his signature and artificially inseminated herself with his frozen sperm without him knowing. And not only did she win, she received absolutely no penalty whatsoever for the forgery, and he wound up racking up an additional £200,000 in legal fees throughout the ordeal. And this miserable bitch isn't even the least bit sorry for what she did. She has no qualms at all about wrecking this man's life. His ex-wife, now 51, said, "I don't believe I have done anything wrong. It was getting later and later for me, and I wanted to have a child. If I had not done it then, I would not be blessed with my children. I have no regrets." Sperm jacking at its worst, which is yet another male fear that women will never understand.
Walking behind a woman and realizing you're going to overtake her. Not wanting to be creepy or scare her. I'm a big burly hillbilly type. So you slow down. Realize now you're keeping pace with her, which probably seems creepy too. I'll just stop walking for 20 seconds.
I've done that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is women are constantly fearing for their safety because they have reason to. And so not every man is going to attack you, but you have to act like it is because you never know when something bad could happen to you. And so for men, that puts you in a position where you do feel creepy and you do have to be cognizant of that. And I appreciate men who are cognizant of that.
My mom raised me right. My mom always told me about respecting a woman's space because I was saying my mom and my sister are two very vocal women. So,
you took it to the next level. You're like, I'm gonna protect your space so much.
Right.
I'm
gonna stop walking. I was gonna pull over in my lane and kick it. But I've done this too. Wow, Hannah, killing it today, Cranston. Good.
Don't you just love how they try to turn this very distressing feeling virtually every man knows into some kind of badge of honor? How they show absolutely no sympathy for it, let alone remorse? Okay, first of all, Jason, nobody's surprised that you've done that. Because by your mother raising you right, just from watching the product of her labor speak on screen right now, I can tell that what you mean to say is that she never instilled any dignity in you as a man. She never even let it occur to you that, as a man, you are worthy of respect as well, and do not deserve to be automatically labeled an aggressor even when you're minding your own fucking business. You're absolutely right. It is all about respecting a woman's space and feelings. Even though men are far more likely to be assaulted or murdered, it's still only women receiving the benefits of female-exclusive abuse shelters, the presumption of innocence in domestic violence cases, anti-rape drug tools, judiciary sympathy both as a plaintiff and as a defendant, female-only taxi services, the chivalrous intervention of every man in sight, and the general lack of concern for men abused by women. And as for respecting a woman's space, well, it's plain to see that nobody gives a damn about men's personal space, especially when violated by a woman. Not if Brazilian model Step Feliza's effort to grab 100 dicks in public is of any indication. She hypocritically did this as a means of making a point about sexual assault, yet all she managed to prove was that she, as a woman, could walk away from it with little more than a legal slap on the wrist and zero corporal punishment. If it had been a man doing the equivalent to women, he wouldn't have made it to victim number 5 before he was maced, tased, beaten, arrested, and facing a lengthy prison sentence with a subsequent place of shame on the sex offender registry. So what this really boils down to, think tank, is that society generally does not care about men's safety or personal space. Only women have the benefit of being seen as victims in virtually any given situation wherein they perceive themselves as such.
Having to be the one who pursues the relationship.
No.
We're moving past that, guys.
Yes.
We're moving past that. That's antiquated.
That's antiquated? Just because feminism has emboldened you to make the first move does not mean you know the full pressure men know when it comes to the expectation of pursuing the relationship, princess. Far from it. If he rejects you, it's somehow still his fault. I guarantee that no one has ever accused you of being gay or ridiculed you because you failed to accept a man's offer of courtship. No, on this side of the planet, you approaching him is viewed as a gift to him, one that apparently makes him a fool for turning down. And if you decide to be persistent about it, you can do things for which any man would be called a scumbag at the very least, or even face legal ramifications with virtually no worry for the consequences. You face nowhere near the same risk. And if he accepts, which is far more likely to happen for you than for us, that still leaves every other aspect of the relationship that follows. On that first date, it's still going to be up to him to be on his best behavior lest he lose your interest and risk you talking shit about him to your friends. It's still going to be up to him to live up to whatever fantasy you've painted about him in your head. It's still going to be up to him to pay for the meal, and he's still going to look like an asshole if the suggestion of going Dutch comes from his mouth instead of yours. And if you actually end up together for any respectable amount of time, it's still going to be all about making you happy. Because you live in a heavily feminist Western society where even asking you for so much as to make him a goddamn sandwich makes him a misogynistic pig. And yet it's perfectly fine for him to be whipped because even to his closest friends, that's a problem with him, not with you. One that's worthy of ridicule. And he's not permitted anything that doesn't meet with your approval, be it friends, outings, personal property, clothing, or the use of his own personal time. Not to mention Valentine's Day, the Western tradition of shelling out for your female companion or facing the shame of being seen as an insensitive prick. Where do you think the term man cave comes from? That's him pushing everything he loves into a small corner of the house where he can escape you and the rest of the house over which you hold sole jurisdiction. Where anything of his only exists there because it's either yours too or because you allowed him to have it there. And let's face it, that includes the man cave itself. And if any of this ever rubs him the wrong way, or God forbid, if he upsets you in any way, it's generally still not you that faces the risk of being ripped in half in alimony. Because by and large, it's still seen as his responsibility to maintain your lifestyle. Antiquated my ass.
If a lone child is not yours and you don't know them, avoid contact. Seek a police officer or any nearest female to assist them. Yeah, that's another. Men do have a stereotype of being,
kidnappers,
perverts or kidnappers or pedophiles and things like that, and that's not really fair, right? No. So I get that this person is just trying to help.
Right.
Yeah, and where do you think that comes from, Hannah? Why do you think that stigma follows them throughout their lives? Forgetting the fact that they have to face the stereotype of thinking with their dicks, which was largely put there by women, forgetting the fact that feminism has painted all men as potential sexual predators, it certainly doesn't help when female pedophiles and sexual abusers receive nowhere near the same media or social stigma as their male counterparts. Hell, to this day, it's barely acknowledged that women are even capable of rape or sexual abuse at all. In the case of Deborah LaFave, most people were too hung up on how hot she was and how lucky her students supposedly should have felt to even bother caring how it would have psychologically affected him. And oftentimes, they even received sympathy, as was the case with Lauren Cooper. Interviews with her were too concerned with why she would lower her standards, why she would compromise her career, to even bother chastising her for the statutory rape. Her victim was little more than a side note. And while we're at it, remember Edward Furlong, that kid who played John Connor in Terminator 2? Not only was he sleeping with his 26-year-old tutor Jacqueline Domack at least as early as 16 and possibly as early as 13, but she actually married him. And while they were married, from what I understand, she exacerbated his drug abuse, then divorced him, sued him for alimony, and filed abuse charges. And throughout all of this, not a conviction for her statutory rape in sight. To my knowledge, feminists had no comment on any of these cases to the end of holding those women to the same standard of self-control and bearing the same subsequent shame as men. To the point where stranger danger awareness campaigns still feature offenders that are exclusively male. And you say it's unfair, yet I don't see you or any feminist doing a damn thing to stop it.
Being expected to always be in the mood or else something is wrong.
Totally.
We need to move away from this. This is toxic masculinity. Always wanting
Sometimes
sex.
you're just not into it. So sometimes you're tired and want to watch Unreal and eat like kettle corn.
I'm doing an Unreal marathon tonight. I'm so excited.
Sometimes you're just not with it. Or you just want to knock it out yourself and go to bed.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And nobody, don't let any man or woman tell you that there is. And to women who sometimes, like, if this happens, the guy's not in the mood, like, don't take it personally. You're not in the mood all the time. Like, that's okay. Don't take it personally. Like, sometimes we're just not in the mood to have sex. Nothing wrong with that. Move on. Move on with your day. Yeah, so these are some things that women will never experience.
Toxic masculinity. Unbelievable. Do you see this shit? Even when it's women who are completely in the wrong, somehow it's still men's fault. Fuck you, Hannah. This person isn't talking about men ribbing their friends for not wanting sex. That's a conversation that rarely happens anyway. No, Hannah, this is about women being persistent in the bedroom and not being held to the same scumbag standard when refusing to accept that no means no. It's about her badgering him to go to the doctor for sexual impotency because surely she's so desirable that her gift of sex should ease all of his troubles and give him an inexhaustible font of energy reserved solely for her sexual pleasure. Surely this is his fault somehow. Something wrong with him. This is about judgment from women, Hannah, not from men. And this is a problem so alien to your gender that you don't even understand what it's about, let alone the emotions stemming from it. Men being denied sex over an argument, men being sent to sleep on the couch and denied the warmth of their partner, these are things that society laughs at, Hannah. Nobody gives a fuck what this does to him emotionally or physically. It's so alien to you that the very idea of denying you in the same way is met with the same laughter, as if to say, who the hell does he think he's kidding?
Wait, so what are you saying? You're gonna hold out on me until I agree with you? Because that's not gonna work, Donna.
First of all, I'm not holding out on you. And second of all, if I did, it would so work.
Okay, well, you know what? I think that is what you're doing. So try this dress on for size. I'm cutting you off. Yeah!
Is that supposed to be a threat?
Supposed to be? Yeah.
Okay. If you want to do this, we'll do this. But you're gonna cave, and I'm gonna laugh.
Yeah!
I've been waiting a long time for some real sympathy and introspection from contemporary feminism, and after having watched this garbage video, I get the feeling I'm going to be waiting for quite some time yet. Think Tank, you are a joke, and the name of your channel is an absolute insult to the true meaning of the term. You're not solving a problem, you are the problem. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what you saw here, have a look at my other videos and leave me your thoughts in the comments. If you support my message, then please like, favorite, and subscribe. If you'd like to help this channel improve, you can reach out to me on Twitter or on Facebook with any suggestions. And if you'd like to support me more directly, please consider following me on Patreon. Links in the description. Thanks again, and I'll catch you all in my next video.